He wakes up not because he wants to, but because the body has learned to move without the soul's permission. The alarm rings, the coffee brews, the world keeps spinning, loud, impatient, unrelenting. And somewhere in that motion lives a man who has grown tired not of life itself, but of existing within it. We rarely talk about him. He's not the man who screams, who rebels, or who leaves notes behind. He's the one who still shows up, to work, to dinners, to conversations he no longer feels part of. He laughs when required. He says, "I'm fine," on cue. But his eyes have the quiet heaviness of someone who's been carrying the invisible weight of existence for far too long. What does it mean to be tired of existing? It's not the same as despair. Despair screams for help. Exhaustion whispers for silence. It's the slow erosion of self, when even meaning feels like an overused word. When the heart beats out of habit rather than desire. When life feels like a movie he's still watching out of loyalty, long after the story stopped making sense. Psychologically, this state is often hidden under names: depersonalization, emotional burnout, existential fatigue. But beneath every diagnosis lies something profoundly human: the realization that being alive is heavier than anyone ever warned us. That sometimes the soul doesn't break, it simply goes quiet. This essay is not about the end of a man, but the stillness before renewal. It's about the psychology of that silence, about why some men stop chasing meaning, and what it takes to make them believe again. So let's step into that silence, not to escape it, but to understand it. The invisible weight. The exhaustion of existence often begins quietly. For many men, it starts with the pressure to perform, to be capable, reliable, strong, and unshakable. Society still teaches men to endure rather than express, to solve rather than feel, to stand tall even when their souls are falling apart. This creates a psychological paradox. The world applauds their strength but never asks about their humanity. They build walls of functionality, careers, responsibilities, habits, yet behind those walls, their emotional world withers. When the performance becomes their identity, they forget what it feels like to be simply human. A man tired of existing often isn't lazy or lost. He's overloaded. He's been emotionally overdrawn, constantly giving, fixing, protecting, without deposits of care in return. His exhaustion is not weakness. It's the body's rebellion against years of suppressed emotion. In psychology, this is known as emotional flattening, when the mind protects itself by numbing out joy and pain alike. It's not sadness that hurts most. It's the absence of feeling altogether. He looks at the sunset and feels nothing. He hears laughter but doesn't join in. He stares at the mirror and recognizes the face but not the person behind it. The meaning crisis. Philosophers like Viktor Frankl once said that meaning is man's deepest need. But meaning is fragile. It must be renewed constantly through connection, creation, and hope. When these things are lost, a man begins to live on autopilot. He stops asking why because every answer feels rehearsed. Modern life amplifies this emptiness. The digital world tells men to hustle, to build empires, to dominate, to grind. But behind the noise, a deeper truth hides. Men are starving for gentleness, for rest, for a place where they can be unarmored. When the external rewards lose meaning, money, praise, status, a spiritual void appears. He may look successful, but inside, he's untethered. It's not failure that breaks him. It's success without fulfillment. The realization that even when he wins, he still feels hollow. This is known as existential fatigue, a term born from existential psychology, where the individual no longer finds purpose in the scripts society gives him. He starts to question everything: his job, his relationships, even his reflection. Not because he hates them, but because they no longer move him. The role of silence for such a man becomes both refuge and prison. He stops explaining himself because no one seems to listen beyond the surface. He's told, "You have so much to be grateful for," as if gratitude were a cure for emptiness. So he learns to retreat, not to hide, but to preserve what little energy remains. He withdraws into quiet routines, late-night drives, endless scrolling, unfinished books. These small acts aren't laziness, they're survival. In silence, he can breathe without performance. In solitude, he can exist without explanation. But prolonged silence becomes dangerous when it hardens into isolation. Without emotional connection, the mind starts to echo its own emptiness. And soon, the question arises. What's the point? It's not a cry for death. It's a yearning for rebirth, for a reason to feel alive again. The lost language of emotion. From childhood, men are taught that vulnerability equals weakness. Don't cry. Be a man. Handle it. And so they do, until one day the heart forgets how to speak. This conditioning creates emotional illiteracy, a phenomenon where men cannot name what they feel. Anger becomes the only permissible outlet, masking deeper layers of sadness, grief, or fear. Over time, these unspoken emotions calcify into fatigue. In therapy, when such men finally open up, their first words are often, "I don't even know what I feel anymore." That sentence is not confusion. It's the sound of a soul rediscovering its vocabulary. The mirror of shame. Another silent killer is shame. Shame whispers that he's not enough. Not successful enough. Not confident enough. Not masculine enough. It convinces him that seeking help is failure, that softness will cost him respect. This inner critic doesn't rest. It follows him into every achievement and whispers, "Still not enough." So he keeps running, until he collapses, not from defeat, but from exhaustion. Carl Jung once said, "A man who looks outside dreams. A man who looks inside awakens." But awakening is painful when what you see inside is emptiness. And yet, that's where healing begins. The desire to vanish. At his lowest, the man tired of existing doesn't necessarily wish for death. He wishes for pause. He fantasizes about disappearing for a while, not to end life, but to escape the endless expectations of it. He imagines silence without guilt, rest without questions, a place where no one asks him to be strong. This fantasy reveals the truth. He doesn't want nothingness. He wants peace. And peace begins not with escape, but with understanding. The man who is tired of existing is not broken. He's disoriented. He's been living for everyone but himself. For society's definitions, for family's hopes, for images of success that never matched his soul's blueprint. His weariness is not failure. It's feedback. The psyche has limits, and exhaustion is its language. It says, "You've strayed too far from yourself." Existential psychologists describe this as the crisis of authenticity, when life is driven by external roles rather than inner truth. The remedy, therefore, is not motivation, but reconnection. To stop performing and start listening again, to his own voice, his forgotten passions, his suppressed needs. Healing begins when he allows himself to rest without shame, when he learns that being is enough even when he's not doing, when he reclaims the right to softness and to cry, to fail, to dream slowly. Society must evolve too. We cannot keep demanding strength from men without offering spaces for vulnerability. Workplaces, relationships, and families must unlearn the language of performance and rediscover the art of empathy, because when a man feels safe enough to speak his truth, he doesn't implode, he rebuilds. Philosophically, the fatigue of existence is also the birthplace of awakening. Nietzsche called it the desert of meaning, the place one must cross before discovering a truer self. When a man endures the silence long enough, something remarkable happens. He begins to hear what's underneath the noise. He realizes that what he truly needs was never more success but more aliveness. To be alive again, he must return to simple things: sunlight on his face, honest conversation, music that makes him feel, the humility to say, "I need help." It's not grandeur that heals the soul, it's gentleness. And slowly, as he begins to feel again, life regains color. The same morning that once felt meaningless now carries a whisper of hope. Because he is no longer trying to exist for the world, he is learning to exist for himself. There's a quiet revolution happening inside men everywhere. A generation learning that silence is not strength, that vulnerability is not weakness, that exhaustion is not the end. The man who is tired of existing is not doomed. He is on the threshold of transformation, because fatigue often precedes awakening. When the old ways of living collapse, something deeper calls from within, the desire to live authentically, not mechanically. To the man listening in silence tonight, you are not weak for feeling this way. You are human, and your tiredness is not proof of failure, but evidence that you've carried too much alone. Let the world spin without you for a while. Drink your coffee slowly. Breathe without purpose. Because meaning does not return when you chase it. It returns when you make room for it. And one day, quietly, without applause or miracle, you'll wake up and realize you are no longer tired of existing. You are simply alive again.